Hi, my name is Melinda. Life has been super weird for me lately, and I need to get it off my chest. So, all my life, I've always had horses. It's just the way it was. My mom loved horses, and pretty much as soon as I could walk, she was giving me riding lessons. It was a great way for us to bond together, and I've never had any issues with it. At least until now. I'm 14 now, and I've been riding for years. For my 12th birthday, my mom bought me a horse of my very own named Buttercup. I love her so much, and she is the perfect horse for me. I've never had a better birthday gift. Since then, I've spent every day grooming and riding her. She's the best pet I've ever had. So when I went to take her for a trot around the forest one afternoon, I was looking forward to it. I imagined it would be fun. We'd both get some exercise and bond, and I'd feed her a carrot afterwards, just like always. But it wasn't like always. As Buttercup was trotting down one of the nature trails in the forest, a deer flew out of nowhere in front of us. It spooked Buttercup, and she reared up, and oh my God, she threw me right off. I landed on my back with a groan. Luckily, there hadn't been a tree behind us or any rocks on the floor. I landed on the dirt and banged my back and head. They were sore, but aside from bruising and a few cuts on my arms, I was fine. The doctor I saw was shocked that nothing more was wrong. They were really worried about my head, but they scanned it and the results came back fine. I felt a little worried and stressed out about riding again, so I started to avoid it. My mom understood, and I didn't go back to the stables for a few weeks. I thought I just needed a little space to clear my head and get over it, but something even weirder started happening. I was sitting in math class when I felt my underwear suddenly get really wet. It was the strangest feeling, and I didn't understand what was going on. At first, I thought it must be my period, but I had it the week before. So I sat there until class was over with the face as bright as a tomato. After everyone else had already gotten up and left, I snuck out and ran to the bathroom. When I checked, I realized I had peed myself. It was such a shock. I hadn't ever peed myself before. At least, not since I was a baby. Why was this happening now? It was like one bad thing after another. So I left school early and went home. I told my mom and dad that I was sick, and I stayed in bed all day after I cleaned myself up. The next day, I came prepared. I put extra underwear in my bag and even some period pads just in case I had another accident. But I didn't. Everything was completely fine. I thought it must have been a weird fluke and maybe I really was sick that day or something. Until a week later, it happened again. This time, I was in gym class. We were practicing trampolining and it was my turn to go. I climbed up and started bouncing, but I'm not very good at it and I fell. I landed on one of the mats around the outside of the trampoline and I thought it was okay, but then I felt the wetness in my underwear. This time, there was no desk to hide behind. I couldn't put a book on my lap or a bag. I had nothing. So when the teacher came over to help me up and check that I was all right, everyone looked at me and they saw. Oh my God, they totally saw that I had wet myself. I couldn't believe it. This was all my fault. Why can't I just control myself? No one else I know has trouble with peeing themselves. Then someone started laughing. Oh my God, Melinda peed herself, one of the girls shouted before more people joined in laughing. I pushed up off the mat and I ran away crying. I thought maybe everything would be fine or people would forget, but the next day people were pointing and laughing at me as I walked down the halls. I couldn't bear it. I thought I was such a weirdo, a freak. What kind of person wets themselves like this? When it got to gym class, it was awful. I ended up peeing again and my period pads weren't enough to hide it. Again? Someone shouted as they pointed at me. Baby Melinda needs her diaper changed. A bunch of people started laughing and I couldn't take it anymore. I left school early again that day and just ran home. My mom and dad were really worried. I didn't tell them anything though. After all, what was I going to say? I started wetting myself like I'm a baby. I just wished I could stop doing it. It was all my stupid fault for not being able to hold it. When Mom came to wake me up the next day, I refused to go to school. I didn't want everyone to laugh at me again. There was no doubt the whole school would have heard by now, and I would be known as the girl who pees her pants all the time. It was too embarrassing. I didn't even want to tell my mom at first. But when she saw how upset I was, she sat down with me on my bed and asked me to tell her what was wrong. "You can trust me, Melinda," she said with a smile. "I promise I'll help you no matter what. That's what moms are for." I totally broke down. I explained to her what happened in between sobs and cries. My whole face was wet and red, and I knew there was snot dripping down my nose too, but I didn't care. I was so embarrassed. It's hard enough being a teenage girl these days as it is. Once I told my mom everything, she wiped my face with some tissue and held me tight. She told me that she'd get to the bottom of the problem and that she'd help me every step of the way. It made me feel so much better. At least I wasn't facing the problem alone anymore. She insisted we go visit the doctor again, so we did. The doctor was puzzled at first until we started going over every detail of what had happened the last few weeks. Then I was sent for a full body scan and more tests. I waited patiently for the results in the doctor's office. I just wanted it to be over. I wanted everything to go back to normal again. Then we were called back into the examination room when they got the results back. The doctor told me that they had been so worried about my head, they hadn't checked my back. It turned out that the fall I had off of Buttercup had caused some damage to the nerves in my lower back and spine. I couldn't believe it. I never would have guessed it was the fall off of Buttercup that had caused it. My mom asked them what could be done. They told her they would schedule an appointment for surgery to have a stent implanted in me to help control my bladder again. I was so happy. I was going to go back to being able to control it again and be a normal kid again. Although the thought of surgery was super scary, it all went fine, and within hours, it was over. I was me again, and I got to spend a few weeks recovering at home, so when I finally went back to school, almost everyone had moved on from the peeing incident. Everyone was so nice when they heard I had surgery. My class even gave me a card and some flowers. Finally, I could be me again, and it felt really, really good.